QPR round off a so far dismal week with a trip to Bramall Lane on Saturday afternoon, so I spoke to Jimmy from Blades Ramble to find out more about Sheffield United's poor start to the season, whether Chris Wilder's return has made a difference, and his prediction for Saturday's clash. I'm Connor aka Hoopsa and I cover all things Queen's Park Rangers, so if you enjoy this match preview, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and let's get straight into it. Hi Jimmy, thank you very much for joining me for a Sheffield United versus QPR match preview. How are you doing?
I'm okay, mate. Thank you. I'm not too bad. As long as we don't have to talk about Sheffield United, I'm absolutely fine. So, yeah, hope you're okay too.
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. I'm sorry to break it to you. We are going to talk about the Blades, and I'm going in really punchy from the very beginning. So,
Okay.
after a tight loss in the playoff final last season, the Blades are currently second bottom, having already sacked Ruben Sellés to bring back Chris Wilder. You've lost 11 matches in total, the most of any team in the league. For Rangers fans that might not be as familiar with what's going on, what is going on?
You're breaking up. Sorry, I can't. No, you're not. Okay. So, what is going on at Sheffield United? Look, it's we got new owners at the turn of the year, and they came into what was a side full of momentum, and we were going very well last season, up for a long time in and around the top three, if you like, with Burnley and Leeds. Two outstanding sides at the level, it has to be said, ending up on 100 points, and rightly so. No complaints at them going up above us because I think they had a bit more than us, if I'm completely honest. But we went in, look, our record in the playoffs is terrible, but we finished significantly higher than the other place teams in the league. So it had to give you a little bit of confidence. You're never overconfident, you always respect the league. But we went into the playoff final thinking we can actually do this. We can break our curse of the playoffs. And the game, for those that don't remember it, we went 1-0 up and then we went 2-0 up, but it got chalked off for VAR in a controversial call. It doesn't matter which way you swing because that were on something like 36 minutes. And even if you believe it should have been chalked off or it shouldn't have been chalked off, we were still in the driver's seat at that point. And that seems to be the sliding doors moment for Sheffield United, unfortunately, because we went on to concede late on. And then Kiefer Moore, who was playing up front for us at the time, gave the ball away. And that's remembered by Sheffield United fans unfairly, I think, on Kiefer Moore, because I think whenever it came in for us, he did a decent job. But gave the ball away, and we lost 2-1. And it was on the day, you take it on the chin, and fair play to Sunderland. They're now going on to do great things in the Premier League by the looks of it, and will establish themselves most likely now this season. But for us, obviously, it meant another season in the Championship, and the owners deemed that not getting promotion was not good enough for Sheffield United, which, looking at us now, is an absolute joke. But they didn't feel that Chris Wilder was overachieving. They must have felt in some way that it was underachieving. So they decided to make a change and went for Ruben Sellés, who had just kept Hull in the division. I sort of tried to understand the strategy behind it. I think they wanted a little bit more. They wanted to change not the DNA. They've ended up trying to change the DNA of the football club, but they've changed the way that we operate. It was more of a head. I know he was classed as a manager, but he was more of a head coach type, and we've never really gone down that route. He's only our second ever foreign manager, and we're much more of a blood and guts, blood and thunder team that tries to outwork the other side rather than tippy tappy playing pretty football. So alarm bells immediately when they sack Chris Wilder and appoint Ruben Sellés. But you back him, as you do, when you follow your club, come rain or shine. And then he's taken us on a terrible run, to be honest. It's 6 games that I think he had in charge in total. And you look at that from the outside and you think that's way too short. A data pack, if you like, to judge somebody on. But if you saw the football, you would understand why fans were pulling their hair out at what we were talking in riddles about vertical football and all these sort of things. And really, Chris Wilder came back in and said he'd frazzled the players. He wasn't trying to directly have a pop at him, but he seems to have undone a lot of the work that we had done to get the players to a certain point. So that's not to mention a terrible transfer window with things like going for high potential but unproven at the level players, dipping into the foreign market, spending millions of pounds abroad without reinvesting in our first team after we lost big players. We lost Vinny Souza, we lost Anel Ahmedhodzic. We then ended up panicking on the last day of the transfer window, spending a load of money on Japhet Tanganga, bringing a load of championship ready players in. like Mark McGuinness, for example, who's a decent Championship defender, but is he somebody that you'd want in your side if you're going for the league title, if you like, or automatic promotion? I'm not sure. Again, I don't mean to pick out individuals, but we all thought when Chris Wilder came back in, brilliant. We'll get a bounce and we'll just pick up where he left off. It's a much harder job than I think he even anticipated when he came back, because there's been a lot of these players that have been shattered mentally. I don't know whether he'd actually had them playing to a higher standard than they should have been at last season for some of them, but some of the players are completely new to the side. It's a new defence essentially.
So Sheffield United's only 3 wins have come after Chris Wilder's return, but just like Rangers, they've lost the last 3 in a row now. Would you say things have improved in any way since Wilder come back, or is it still sort of the same problems you mentioned? They've been frazzled by the previous manager.
It's definitely improved. Undoubtedly, we're winning more duels. We are more creative in the final third. There are still significant problems, though. I mean, you could look at individual issues. I mean, Ben Godfrey's out with personal reasons, which we're not sure about, and we're not even going to touch on. But that's one example. Reece Campbell looks really unfit. Louis Barry has not even touched the sides in terms of getting into the first team properly, and never really performing. Cheo Ogbene's come in as our solution on the right wing, and he's nowhere near it, to be honest. And that answers the question as to why Ipswich would loan out a player to who was a team who's supposed to be one of their promotion rivals, and he's just not at the races. So there's been some really poor transfer decisions made this summer, and not only that, Chris Wilder's quite stubborn, and I know that we know that as Blades fans, but that probably don't come as any surprise to anybody that doesn't necessarily know him that well. But just from the impression that you get, he's quite steadfast in what he thinks is the right way to do things, and that can work both for and against us. We love Chris Wilder. I wouldn't want anybody else managing my football club, but he is his own worst enemy at times, and he will religiously stick to this. Currently, we've got a 4-2-3-1. He tweaked it very slightly last time out, and we went 4-4-2 because he wanted 2 strikers up top. But even then, he's shifting players out of position. Callum Aware was out on the right hand side. Japhet Tanganga is playing out at right back because we haven't got a right back, but he's our best centre half. He's not a right back, so we've got there's a formation that we can play that suits every player down to the ground, which is a 3-4-1-2, and that would fit every player that he picked during the last game. It would fit everybody into their most comfortable position, but for some reason he's stuck to a set way of doing things, and is it a veiled message to the owners that he needs more in January? I think it's very early to be doing that. He's been known to do that before. I think it's very early and it's very risky to do that, to be honest. But we have improved under him, undoubtedly, and certain individuals have definitely improved. It's just, can he continue that upward trajectory? Because when you get on a bit of a run, we thought we'd turn the corner with a couple of wins on the spin, and then we've lost 3 on the bounce since then. So how if we think they're quality players that they just need a bit more confidence, it's going to zap all the confidence out of them getting beat week to week. So it's a tricky one, but I do see improvements, but there's still a long way to go.
You mentioned there have been a couple of individuals that have been providing some quality. Who would you say can cause QPR some issues on Saturday? And then on the flip side, where could Rangers cause the Blades some problems?
Okay, well, disappointingly for us, Harrison Burrows he's not the same player at the moment. It looks like Michael Cooper might be injured as well, who's our goalkeeper, and if that's right and he's going to miss the game, then Adam Davies as our replacement goalkeeper is certainly a weak link in the side. I get no pleasure in saying that, but it's undoubtedly true. The reason I mentioned Harrison Burrows first, though, is because Sam McCallum's come into the side and looked really well. He's taken his chance and he's grabbed it with both hands, and he is almost at the point where he's established himself as our starting left back. That's a combination of both Burrows being poor and McCallum being decent to good. I think we paid a lot of money for Harrison Burrows, so he will be the option that we want to progress in that position. But Sam McCallum has done exactly as you'd want your backup players to do, come in and made the shirt his own. The one player that will cause you undoubted problems And the one player that's sort of leading us and dragging us at the moment by his individual performances is Callum O'Hare. It's the best I've seen him play in a Sheffield United shirt recently. He's been criticised previously for being a little bit all sizzle and no steak, that sort of thing, really. Where he looks good, and in terms of the way he moves, and he always looks busy. He's the energy. We called him last season the Energizer Bunny because he never stops running, and that is it's brilliant in terms of what you want from your players, in terms of commitment and dedication to closing players down and being up and down the pitch, and that's fantastic to see. But Chris Wilder got asked the question in a press conference recently. Callum O'Hare covered 14 kilometres in, say, 3-4 games ago. And he says, well, that's brilliant, but he's not training for the Olympics. We need him to score more goals and create more goals for the side. He's the number 10. That's what he's there to do. And just before he'd made that comment, Wilder, O'Hare had got himself on the score sheet. And then from that time, his goals and assists have really started to come through. So he's up to that side of his game. I couldn't tell you what he's on something like 7 goals and assists, goal involvements this season, something like that. Don't quote me on the numbers particularly, but he's significantly improved in that department. And I would say he's the only one that can really hold his head high and say he's having a decent individual season. Everybody else is below par, other than Sam McCallum, who's come in and done a decent job, as I say. But Callum O'Hare's the one to watch. As I said, the weak links that you will probably be able to get to us are Adam Davies, if he's in goal, is a definite weak link. He came to punch a corner against Coventry and completely missed it, and that allowed them back into the game. A really sort of simplistic routine thing that a goalkeeper should come and sort, and he didn't. Maybe rust, but I've no confidence in him, unfortunately. We've also got a very slow defensive pairing in the middle in Mark McGuinness and Ben Mee. If you launch balls into the box, then we'll comfortably deal with it most of the time. However, if you play around us and keep it to feet and keep it neat on the deck, then we may struggle to keep up with you. So I think I think also we're quite slow and predictable in the transition in terms of attacking. So that's where we've struggled in terms of breaking the lines in the final third. So that's somewhere else that we may struggle to break you down. But in terms of how you can get at us, that's probably the most effective way to tackle us at the minute.
Before we round off, I wanted to touch on Reece Norrington Davies, a player that, if you believe kind of the Twitter responses that we saw when the announcement was out, a lot of Sheffield United fans were quite pleased to see the back of him, I guess
Yeah,
is the polite way of putting it.
yeah.
He has slotted in pretty well at QPR. Granted, we're not in very good form, but he has been a solid left back. I think we are seeing maybe the consequences of some of that previous injury history a little bit. He's having his minutes managed. I just wanted to get your thoughts on him as a player because, yeah, he has kind of started well at QPR.
I'm delighted for Reece Norrington Davies because he's been, not just me, but he's been a bit of a cult favourite at Sheffield United. There were a select crowd of us that were real big Norrington Davies fans, and a lot of us, a lot of Blades, saw the potential in Reece quite early on. And he's always been a very consistent performer. And there was a point in time before he got his really bad injury, which kept him out for about 14 months. There were a period in time where he was on an upward trajectory as a player, and it was almost, he's arguably the best player in our side at one stage. And it were rumoured that Leicester were preparing like a 10 to 12 million pound bid for him. And then he got the injury. He'd been playing for Wales at the time as well. So his career was on the up. And I really liked him and really rated him as a player. He came back from the injury and looked an absolute shadow of himself. And it was a real shame to see because we've seen this happen all too often where players don't come back the same player, unfortunately. And it just looked like, despite him getting chance after chance after chance, he was unable to get anywhere near that rhythm back that he'd had previously. To the point where we'd signed Harrison Burrows, we'd also signed Sam McCallum last season, and Reece were all of a sudden third choice, and he's on a decent wedge, as you'll probably know. So we started using him as a left centre half, and it's not his position. He looked uncomfortable there. He got caught out a few times there, to be honest. So I rate him as a footballer. I think he's okay on the left hand side of a 3, but he's not a centre half in a 2, and we were playing with a 2. I think he's a good footballer, and I'm delighted that he seems to be getting his confidence back at QPR. Do I think there's a future at Sheffield United for him? Probably not, because of the traffic in front of him, unfortunately. But I think if he's doing a good job for you boys and you want to come in with a reasonable or a fair offer for him, I think it'll be considered by Sheffield United. But who knows at the minute? I think in January we are going to throw everything into the mixer, and nothing is off the table in terms of incomings, outgoings, because it's gone so wrong for us this year. I feel like it's back to the drawing board a little bit. It wouldn't surprise me to see players like Gus Hamer leave in January to inject some funds into the squad to rebuild again. If an offer comes in for Harrison Burrows, it wouldn't surprise me to see Reece Norrington-Davies come back to Sheffield United, and we might choose to cash in on Harrison Burrows because he's not been anywhere near the level. So it's all up in the air for Sheffield United at the moment, but delighted for Reece because he's fondly thought of at Sheffield United, and he's obviously doing a great job at QPR now. So all the best to him going forward. And, after this weekend, I wish him all the best.
Well, the good news for Sheffield United this weekend is you've lost just one of our last 9 meetings. So to finish us off here, let's get your score prediction.
I think both teams are in a terrible run. And I think it's 4 losses in the last 6 for both and 2 wins. So I do fancy us to turn it around at Bramall Lane. I think we need to, because we've got the Sheffield Wednesday game coming up after the break, after this fixture. I fancy us to nick it 2-1. No result would surprise me, unfortunately, but I fancy 2-1. What is it you're going for?
I've not decided yet.
Right.
That's gonna follow in my recording. I don't know.
Enough.
I can't look past a loss, if I'm being honest. A QPR loss.
Really?
We're just, yeah.
Second from bottom. We're awful.
Yeah, I know, but that doesn't, we just played Southampton, who were 4th from bottom, and, they looked very, very comfortable without looking especially good, to be honest. So, I feel like
to us too.
I feel like we've got another bad result in us, at least before the international break, and hopefully they can regroup then. So I'll let you know my score prediction once I've got to it.
I'll be watching. I'll be watching, mate.
Right, Jimmy, thank you so much for joining me for this preview, and all the best for the rest of the season after the weekend, of course.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, up the Blades.
Massive thanks again to Jimmy for joining me for this one. Make sure you give him a follow and check out Blades Ramble below. Well, this all feels like deja vu really, doesn't it? 3 previews in a row, a fan of the opposition telling us just how poor their team has been this season, and then old QPR come along just in the nick of time. I have to be honest, I'm not expecting anything other than a loss this weekend. Confidence is low, and having lost again on Wednesday, I'm fully expecting Stefan to change half the team once again. The thing is, half the team changes, but the shape doesn't, so if we set up exactly the same again, I just can't see things changing very much at either end of the pitch. The priority, first of all, is to tidy up that defence, and given we're fairly limited in who's available for selection there, I think the only way to do that is by throwing in an extra midfielder, because I just can't see Stefan switching to 3 centre-backs. I said it in my Southampton reaction already, but personally I think Morgan did enough in very few minutes to get a look in here, and so I'd be throwing him in as that extra midfielder. Going forwards, we have to be far better on the ball this time round, because as Jimmy warned, crosses into the box will be dealt with, and that's pretty much all we did against Southampton. This is going to be all about how we play with the ball at our feet, and that means more movement off the ball and more overlaps will be needed to cause danger. So, score prediction time. I would love for us to pick up a win and just put a halt to this run of form just before the international break, but I'm just not seeing that right now. I'm going to go the same as Jimmy, a 2-1 QPR loss. What about you? How do you think this one's going to play out? Let me know your score predictions in the comments down below. If you're new to the channel and you've enjoyed it, you want to see more, make sure you hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time for my match reaction. Come on, you Rs.